स्वर्ग संसार हो, अति उच्चतम जीवन बने, परमार्थमय व्यवहार हो। ना हम रहे अपने लिए, हमको सभी से गर्ज है। गुरुदेव ये आशीष दे, जो सोचने का फर्ज है। हम हो पुजारी तत्व के, गुरुदेव के आदेश के, सच प्रेम के नित नेम के, सधर्म के सत्कर्म के, हो चीर झूठी राह की, अन्याय की अभिमान की, सेवा करन को दास की, परवाह नहीं हो जान की। छोटे न हो हम बुद्धि से, हो विश्वमय से ईश्वरमय, हो राममय और कृष्णमय, जगदेव में जगदीशमय। हर इंद्रियों पर ताब कर, हम वीर हो अति वीर हो, उज्ज्वल रहे स्तर से सदा, निज धर्म रत खंभीर हो। अति शुद्ध हो आचार से, तन मन हमारा सर्वदा, आध्यात्म की शक्ति हमें पल भी नहीं कर दे जुदा। इस अमर आत्मा का हमें हर श्वास भर में गम रहे। गर मौत भी आ गई, सुख दुख हमसे सम रहे।
Guys, have a seat. So, very good afternoon to everyone present here. Today we will be continuing with our story which was left earlier weekend session regarding rule of ethics. And before that, I would just like to jog your memory about what we had a discussion in our last session about that. So, can anyone just tell me what we had discussed? What is ethics? What do you mean by ethics? Because I had a long conversation on that. What is ethics? What is the meaning of ethics? What is the essence of ethics? So, just a snapshot of that. What you understood by the word ethics. Right? Anyone? The word ethos, the Greek word from which the terminology derived. Okay, ignore that. The fact ethics is doing the right thing even when no one is watching you. And just plain text that gives its essence to the word ethics. After that, we had discussed about the first schedule, the second schedule, what are the principles that a CA as a profession go by. We also discussed about the C Act 1949 and what was previous deciding that. Right before that was the Auditors Regulation 1932 and why C Act came into force. So today we will be continuing that journey. So today we will be continuing that journey and we will be discussing furthermore on disciplinary committee and jog your memories back on the first schedule and second schedule, the clauses that we gone through. And further delve deep into the code of ethics, the circulars, the latest developments that we have seen, and what a present scenario of ethics is in in this time. So we will be starting with our speakers. First would be going with Manas, and the Kusum would follow him, and the closing would be done by Survika.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Manas, and today I, with my co-presenters, are going to discuss about disciplinary mechanism, the circulars that are issued by ICI and the Council, and NOCLAR, and Ethical Standard Board. So first, I'm going to discuss about the disciplinary mechanism. First of all, we have to understand कि discipline mechanism बनाने का need purpose क्यों है, क्या इसकी जरूरत क्यों पड़ी? Because if a misconduct happens in this field, then there was nothing that can control our profession. So ICI bought a framework so they can मतलब basically CS को कंट्रोल करने के लिए, ताकि वो जो एथिकल काम है, इंटीग्रिटी वाला काम है, वो आगे चलता रहे. This disciplinary mechanism is governed by CA Act 1949 and is covered in Chapter 5 of the Act. So moving forward, I would like to draw back to the previous Saturday class where we discussed about professional misconduct. So professional misconduct was defined in the first and the second schedule of the previous Saturday class. We have discussed it. So what is the first and the second schedule? First, we are going to discuss about those. The first schedule includes all those misconducts that are not grave. मतलब ज्यादा serious misconducts नहीं है वो. और अगर आप कोई serious misconduct करते हो, then it is governed by the second schedule. So as you can see, the section 22 defines the core definition of professional misconducts, professional or other misconducts that are specifically outlined in the first and the second schedule. The director of the discipline, this we will discuss in the future. Who is the director of discipline? He has the power to inquire himself over any misconduct that has been happening. So he can maintain the gold standard of integrity. यहाँ पे पर्सनल इंटीग्रिटी की बात होती है. अगर कोई प्रोफेशनल काम कर रहा है and he conducts any misconducts, but then the director of discipline has the true power to conduct inquiry. First question.
So the first question revolves around which misconduct is considered more grave and where the misconduct has been mentioned.
Bhumi,
Yeah.
Bhumi, Divya,
If you go with the audience, what was the Divya, are you there? Divya and Bhumi.
Second schedule.
Correct. So we are going to first discuss about the professional schedule, the first schedule of the professional lapses. I'm going to quickly revise through it because we have already discussed this in the previous class. The part one of the first schedule includes clauses that are related to members that are currently in practice. Part two applies to the members that are currently in service. Part three is generally applied to both the members in service and in practice. And part four is other misconducts. So the clauses I'm going to discuss are the first of the first schedule. There are 12 clauses. The first clause is allowing practice under own name by a non-member. मतलब अगर आप एक CEO, एक practicing CEO और आप अपने अंडर कोई भी non-member को प्रैक्टिस करने के लिए अलाउ करते हो, देन इट इज अ मिसकंडक्ट इन दिस शेड्यूल. सेकेंड वन इज शेयरिंग फीस एंड और पेइंग कमीशन टू द नॉन मेंबर्स. अगर आप अपनी फीस आपको कोई भी मिलती है और अगर आप उसको शेयर करते हो किसी नॉन मेंबर के साथ, देन इट इज ऑल्सो कंसिडर्ड अ मिसकंडक्ट. थर्ड वन इज एक्सेप्टिंग शेयर ऑफ प्रॉफिट. दिस इज डिफरेंट फ्रॉम द सेकंड शेड्यूल, क्योंकि वहां पे आप शेयर कर रहे थे, यहाँ पे आपको एक्सेप्ट नहीं करना किसी और से फ्रॉम अ नॉन मेंबर. अगर कोई नॉन मेंबर है तो अगर आप इससे एक्सेप्ट करते हो शेयर, कोई भी प्रॉफिट शेयर एक्सेप्ट करते हो, देन इट इज कंसिडर्ड नॉन मिसकंडक्ट. पार्टनरशिप विद नॉन क्वालिफाइड पर्सन. अगर आप किसी भी पार्टनरशिप फर्म में एंटर करते हो, दैट इज अगर वो नॉन पार्टनर है, दैट मीन्स नॉन मेंबर है, then it is considered a misconduct. That means you can only come into a partnership in a practicing partnership with other CAs only. Fifth one is securing professional business through improper means. That means you cannot secure your business. आपका professional work आप secure नहीं कर सकते through any agent or through any other work. You have to secure it by your own reputation, by your own work, by your own professional work. Sixth one is soliciting clients or professional work. You cannot solicit clients. That means आप advertise करके या फिर आप किसी और के clients को solicit करके खुद अपने work के अंदर include नहीं कर सकते हो. You have to get clients by your own reputation, by your own work. Seventh one is advertising attainments or using improper designations. मतलब अगर आप किसी भी letter पे or your visiting card you mention any improper designation or you advertise your own attainments that I have worked for this much year, I am मतलब मैं इस चीज में प्रोफेशनल हूँ, then it is also considered a misconduct. Basically आपको जो भी वर्क आपको मिल रहा है, that shall not come from any advertisement or from any soliciting. It shall come from your own reputation and work. Eighth one is accepting position without communicating with previous auditor. This one is self-explanatory. अगर आप कोई भी engagement accept कर रहे हो, then you have to communicate with the previous auditor and see whether the fees has been paid to the auditor. Any misconduct has been happened in the company before, so you have to see that. And if you does not see that and accept without communicating with the auditor, previous auditor, then it is considered a misconduct. Ninth one is appointment without verifying compliance with the Companies Act. मतलब Companies Act gives chapter 10 for the audit and auditors. You have to see whether the company has complied with that chapter or not before accepting the engagement. 10th one is charging contingency based or percentage fees. If you charge any percentage based fees, that means if your अगर आप जैसे चार्ज करते हो कि सपोज अगर कंपनी के अंदर प्रॉफिट एक्स अमाउंट का हुआ, देन आई विल गेट फीस फॉर y percentage, then it is considered a misconduct.
Why it is considered a misconduct? We have discussed that in our last session as well, and there were two exceptions to this as well. If you remember, there are two professionals who charge their fees on a percentage basis, contingency part. Yeah. Yeah, insolvency person, because they charge their fees on the net realized amount. And another person, the investment bankers, from which IPO listing and these type of things, the underwriting people, because their fees is majorly, or you can say in common practice, is dependent on the money they would be funding. They would get the funds for the company. If the shares would be oversubscribed, or it would be reaching the limit as well. And now going back to my question, why this clause is there for CAs, that it is a misconduct. If there are two exceptions, why for a CA it is not an exception? Guys, this is general. Anyone? You don't have to quote any particular lines or section.
Percentage, they would pay like the financial interest. So it's not like we can maintain a by if you go अपने हिसाब से include या फिर overestimate.
Correct. Because we are certifying or we are giving the assurance on what? The financial statements. If our piece is dependent on that turnover or the profit of the company, then definitely we would be aligned towards the company getting its performance on a positive side. We would be not seeing with a rational mind that whether this expense is right or not, whether this income is right or not.
The 11th clause is engaging in other business. That means a practicing CA cannot engage in any other business if he is having a partnership firm. The 12th clause is unauthorized signing of the financial statement by non-member. If the financial statements are signed by any non-member in the practicing, मतलब अगर कोई practice CA कर रहा है उसके अंडर financial statement किसी non-member ने sign किया है, then it is considered a misconduct. This was the first part of the first schedule. The second part includes two clauses. The first one is sharing emoluments. I would like to also clarify before starting this, the part two relates to the members that are in service. So the first clause is sharing emoluments. That means you cannot share your fees or any मतलब profit salary with any other person. The second one is accepting undisclosed commission. That means आपको salary के अलावा अगर कुछ और मिल रहा है from your employer, then you cannot accept it if it is undisclosed.
Now, why for the service people it is being mentioned in the clause 1 that you can't share the amounts? If you are, because most of us, these clauses and these misconduct thing, it would be applicable for you all guys. I'm giving you a disclaimer here. So you have to apply your brain and think why ESB came up with Code of Ethics in 2009, why these clauses were being updated and still there have been updations being made and why these are applicable to us. In service, definitely most major people will be going. So why can't you share the environments with others? When you joined Kalani, there were certain procedures you went through. There was a screening, there was interview, then you came up in this firm for your articleship. Similarly, when you go for service in any particular MNC or in any limited listed company, there are certain procedures you have to go through. There is screening, then there will be interview, and then finally you will get selected. Sharing emoluments or sharing salary component with any other person, what does it indicates? Does it indicate that you are not capable of that position?
Giving a part of your salary just because you want to get it.
Yeah. It indicates that there might be a loophole that you found out in that company, in that HR department to get into that position. And you are doing this just so that you can retain the position at that. So it is a part of position.
So we'll move on to the part third of the first schedule. These include three clauses. Basically, the crux of it is you cannot misrepresent yourself as an FCA if you are an ACA. If you do not comply with the disciplinary bodies will be discussed in the later slides, then it is considered a misconduct. And if you furnish any false information to the institute, then it is also considered a misconduct in the part 3. Part 4 includes two clauses. The first one is criminal conviction. If any criminal court, civil court held you as a convict or any gives you any punishment for any offense which is up to 6 months imprisonment देता है आपको इस 6 months के लिए, then it is covered in part 4. Or if you bring any disrepute to the profession, then it is considered misconduct in the part 4. This was the first schedule. Now we are going to discuss about the second schedule that includes grave misconducts. The part 1 applies to the members that are in practice. The part 2 applies to the general, to the both members who are in practice and in service. And the third one are other. The part one includes 10 clauses. The first one is disclosure of client information without consent. This means you have to maintain confidentiality at all the times. You cannot disclose any information, client information, without their consent. If you do that, then it is a misconduct. Certifying report without personal examination. If you certify any report without personal examination, then it is considered a misconduct. The third one is vouching for accuracy of future earning forecast. This means you can help the company or the client for creation of future earning forecast, but you cannot vouch for it that it is 100% accurate. If you do that, if you vouch for it, then it is considered a misconduct. Fourth one is auditing entities where CA has substantial interest. If a CA has any substantial interest in any entity, then he cannot audit that entity. He cannot accept an engagement in that entity. But he does accept that audit, then it is considered a misconduct. Fifth one is failure to disclose material facts in the financial statements. And the sixth one is failure to report material misstatement. These two are completely different things. The fifth one is failure to disclose the material facts. That means you have not disclosed it in the financial statements. The sixth one is you have reported you have disclosed the material misstatement, but you are quiet. आप कुछ बोल नहीं रहे कि उसके अंदर ये misstatements हैं. So if you do both the things, then it is considered a misconduct. Seventh one is due diligence. If you do your duties with gross negligence, then it is considered a misconduct. Eighth one is sufficient information before opinion. Before forming an opinion, the auditor must ensure that he has obtained sufficient audit evidence. If he does not obtain sufficient information, then it is considered a misconduct. Ninth one is material departure from audit procedures. The auditor has an audit procedure that he shall perform while conducting an audit. But if he materially depart from it, then it is considered a misconduct. 10th one is client monies in separate bank account. In a separate account, मतलब अगर कोई client आपको पैसा देता है, CA को पैसा देता है, then he should keep it in a separate account and he should only utilize that money for the purpose जिसके लिए उसको मिला है. If he utilizes for any other purpose, then it is considered a misconduct.
Also, regarding sixth clause, failure to report material misstatements. So, in case you found a material misstatement, where do you report? See, it is a general question related to SEs. In an audit report, whether that leads to a qualified opinion, adverse opinion,
The part 2 includes 5 clauses. The first one is contravention of act, regulation or the guidelines issued by the council. This is self-explanatory. अगर आप ये act या regulation या कोई भी guideline follow नहीं करते, then it is considered a misconduct. Disclosure of confidential information. This one applies to the CAs that are in practice as well as who are in service. So this is same as disclosure of client information without consent. Submitting false particulars to the institute. मतलब आप कोई भी false information institute को provide करते हो, then it is a misconduct. Defalcation or embezzlement of professional fund. This means if you got any professional fees, any professional fund, any professional commission, then you cannot embezzle it, use for fraudulent purposes. If you do that, then it is considered a misconduct. Fifth one is acting as auditor in violation of the Companies Act. If you are appointed as an auditor in violation of the Companies Act, Chapter 10, then it is considered a misconduct. The part 3 has only one clause and it is similar to the part 4 of the first schedule. It states अगर कोई भी member is held punishable in a civil or a criminal code for imprisonment more than 6 months, then it is covered in the part 3 of the second schedule. In the first schedule, it was for up to 6 months. Here it is for more than 6 months. Now we are going to discuss a case study. There was a CA who served as a taxation advisor. एक taxation advisor था पूरी group of companies का. During a search and seizure under the Income Tax Act, it was discovered that the CA was colluding with the group. मतलब वो group के साथ मिलके काम कर रहा था. he signed two different sets of financial statements for the same auditee. मतलब उस पूरे ग्रुप के लिए उन्होंने दो फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट साइन किए थे जिसमें सेम फाइनेंशियल ईयर थे और डिफरेंट फिगर्स थे. He also admitted that he was a managing partner in two different firms who were not a chartered accountant with the people who were not chartered accountant. So whether this is a misconduct, professional misconduct or not. Under which clause? कौन कौन से clause यहाँ पे पिक्चर में आ रहा है?
What are the particular phrases that you can quote which indicate to you, which just converts this case study into a professional misconduct?
Was partner with lower numbers and non-chartered.
Yeah.
Not chartered accountants के साथ वो partner.
So the people who are not qualified, उनके साथ उसने partnership कर रही है. Another point. Different sets of उसने financials बना रखे थे. अलग अलग फिगर दिखाने के लिए, टैक्स डिपार्टमेंट को अलग फिगर दिखाने के लिए और इन्वेस्टर्स और स्टेक होल्डर्स को अलग फिगर. Manas.
The clauses that are here, first is the unauthorized partnership. वो एक नॉन चार्टेड अकाउंटेंट के साथ दूसरी फर्म में था. Then it was a misconduct under clause 4 of part 1 of the first schedule. Second one is failure to disclose material fact. He did not show the material facts in both the financial statements. And अगर कोई भी वो दो फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट पढ़ेगा तो उसको नहीं पता चलेगा कि दिस वन इज ट्रू और द सेकंड वन इज ट्रू, द फर्स्ट वन और द सेकंड वन. सो देयर वाज फेलियर टू डिस्क्लोज द मटेरियल फैक्ट्स, फेलियर टू रिपोर्ट मटेरियल मिसस्टेटमेंट बिकॉज ही वाज कंसीलिंग सम इंफॉर्मेशन. जब वो उसने साइन किए थे देन ही वाज कंसीलिंग द इंफॉर्मेशन कि उसने दो क्यों साइन किए. देन इट वाज कंसीडर्ड ही वाज नॉट रिपोर्टिंग मटेरियल मिसस्टेटमेंट. एंड ग्रॉस नेग्लिजेंस, क्योंकि उसने अपना काम, अपनी ड्यूटी इंटीग्रिटी के साथ नहीं की थी, देन इट वाज कंसीडर्ड ग्रॉस नेग्लिजेंस. Second case
was discussed in previous session as well. That gross negligence clause is a clause which is a universal clause. In every case study, you will definitely find that yeah, if उसने कोई disclosure नहीं दिया, अगर उसने material statement नहीं बताया तो definitely वो gross negligence के अंदर भी आ रहा है.
The second case study includes एक CA था who issued a clean report first of a company that had credit facilities from a bank. Later on, he issued a revised audit report saying कि उसने financial statement revise करा. Subsequently, the bank conducted a due diligence audit by itself and found out major discrepancies in the original clean report and the actual affairs. He did not report loans, directors' personal insurance premiums of the company that the company had taken. So whether this is considered a misconduct or not, and if yes, in which clauses?
Online participants. You have to be random person. They go to Dhruv Gupta.
कैसे अचानक से लोग करता
Dhruv.
Yes. Sir, failure to report statement, मतलब जो इंफॉर्मेशन को उसको अवेलेबल थी उसने पूरी तरह डिस्क्लोज नहीं करी.
Okay,
and did not perform due diligence.
right.
Uh,
Repeat again.
that's it, I guess.
There are
Guys, any additions from your side?
Past 40 years to institute as well. As mentioned above, device or important institute.
Revised audit report to the institute within a time.
need to revise this one.
So what you are saying is false information.
Which is ambiguous as well. Because being told company revise and to institute.
रिवाइज कर दी है तो रिवाइज क्लीन रिपोर्ट है क्या?
ये तो उसके अंदर आ गया ना आपका।
नहीं पहले तो मैं बोलूँ गिल्टी होगा भी क्यों अगर मैंने कोई अपने में फर्स्ट टाइम वीडियो जनरेट किया वीडियो जनरेट करने में कुछ गलती होगी सेकंड टाइम दोबारा रिवाइज जनरेट करके क्लीन कर दिया तो गिल्टी क्यों होगा मेरे ख्याल से तो जितना मैं समझा
पर तीसरी लाइन से आ रहा है ना ड्यू डिलिजेंस वाली देखो।
A subsequent due diligence audited will find clear major discrepancies between the original clean report and the actual state of affairs.
इधर से आ रही है
Original clean report है
original and the actual state of including unreported loans and the debiting of director's personal insurance premium.
तो ओरिजिनल रिपोर्ट तो फर्स्ट टाइम वाली होगी ना या आंसर क्या है इसका इसमें 6 clauses कवर हो रहे हैं फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल सर्टिफिकेशन विदाउट एग्जामिनेशन he first of all certified the first clean audit report without examining the financial statements properly. The second one is failure to disclose material facts. In the first clean audit report, he did not disclose material facts, and in the second report, he did not reported those material misstatements.
And the gross
negligence. The eighth one was failure to obtain sufficient information. He formed an opinion before obtaining sufficient information.
regarding that director वाला था।
Clean audit report में उसने
And departure from audit procedure, he failed to invite attention to the material
material
departures.
departures.
अब पीछे जाना एक बार ऑब्वियस that case study
Material departure ये देख जैसे इसका
ये
अनरिपोर्टेड लोन्स
हाँ।
फॉर एग्जांपल लोन्स स्पेसिफाई लोन्स कैसे आप वेरीफाई करते हो लोन स्टेटमेंट मंगवा लिया एसआई
Statement.
मंगवा लिया आरपीएस मंगवा
हाँ।
लिया उसके बेसिस पे लोन को वेरीफाई करते हैं तो अगर आपने वो नहीं लिया तो एक स्टैंडर्ड प्रोसीजर जो एक किसी बैलेंस को वेरीफाई करने का होता है वो नहीं हुआ मटेरियल डिपार्चर हो गया एक गैप के हिसाब से जनरली एक्सेप्टेबल अकाउंटिंग पॉलिसीज के हिसाब से
और ये जो है ना इसने रिवाइज्ड ऑडिट रिपोर्ट दी ना इसके आगे इसने ये नहीं बताया भैया कि इसने क्लीन रिवाइज्ड ऑडिट रिपोर्ट में क्या बोला। तो इसमें इधर जब वो किए ना आंसर्स अपने क्लॉजेस क्लेम किए तो अपन ने यही मान लिया कि क्लीन के हिसाब से चल रहा है। ये रिवाइज के अंदर भी उसने अगर कुछ 2-3 एक्स्ट्रा डिस्क्लोजर किए भी हैं तब भी उसने क्लीन किए।
बच्चों के बदली
वो बच्चों को
Okay, so moving forward, we will discuss about the disciplinary mechanism. The disciplinary mechanism includes 4 bodies. First of all is the directorate. Second one is the board of discipline. The third one is disciplinary committee, and the fourth one is appellate authority. ये चारों जब एक साथ काम करती हैं तो एक पूरा डिसिप्लिनरी मैकेनिज्म बनता है एंड जितनी भी अपन ने मिसकंडक्ट्स यहाँ पे डिस्कस करी हैं these all are governed by these all 4 bodies. The first one is the disciplinary directorate. This is governed by section 21 of the CA Act 1949. So first we will discuss कि इसके अंदर कौन कौन होता है कोर कॉम्पोजिशन कौन कौन है. I earlier told you कि director of discipline कौन होता है. The director of discipline is an officer of the institute who heads the directorate. So he has the power to make investigations, to make inquiries for any misconduct that has been referred to him. यहाँ पे 2 joint directors होते हैं discipline and support staff होता है ताकि वो आगे अपनी investigations को further assist कर सके. The disciplinary directorate is a investigative wing. मतलब यहाँ पे ये कोई एक्शन नहीं लेते ये इन्वेस्टिगेशन करते हैं. दे आर द गेटकीपर. अगर कोई भी मिसकंडक्ट इनको रेफर किया जाता है फर्स्ट दे विल सी कि यार ये एक्शनेबल है या नहीं है. दिस दे विल डिटरमाइन विद इन अ पीरियड ऑफ 30 डेज. तो 30 डेज में ये देखेंगे कि इसके ऊपर अपन को एक्शन करना है क्या गिल्टी है या नहीं है. That means actionable or non-actionable. The directorate refers these the cases. अगर वो actionable होते हैं, then they refer the case to the board of discipline or disciplinary committee. अब ये दोनों को कब refer करते हैं? If the misconduct falls into the first schedule only, if it relates to only the first schedule, then it goes to the board of discipline. But if it goes to the second schedule or both the schedules, मतलब second schedule को hit कर रहा है या फिर दोनों schedules को hit कर रहा है, then it goes to disciplinary committee. Question for offline. Any question?
जिसका चेहरा
How
पसंद आ
many
रहा है
days the director of discipline have to decide if a complaint is actionable or non-actionable after receiving it?
Who are the people who just went back on site? 30 days पक्का पता है सबको? हाँ. अगला वाला क्वेश्चन.
तो दो बॉडीज जिनको रेफर हुआ केस, दैट इज द बीओडी एंड द डीसी. तो बीओडी इज गवर्न बाय सेक्शन 21A एंड डीसी इज गवर्न बाय सेक्शन 21B. द बीओडी कंप्राइजेस ऑफ द प्रिसाइडिंग ऑफिसर, जो सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट इनको नॉमिनेट करती है. एक गवर्नमेंट नॉमिनी होता है जो सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट उसको भी नॉमिनेट करती है. एक काउंसिल मेंबर होता है दैट इज नॉमिनेटेड बाय द काउंसिल, एंड एक सेक्रेटरी होता है द ऑफिसर ऑफ द इंस्टीट्यूट नॉट बिलो द रैंक ऑफ डेप्यूटी सेक्रेटरी. दिस इज द बोर्ड ऑफ डिसिप्लिन. द बोर्ड डिसिप्लिनरी कमिटी, इट हैज ऑलमोस्ट द सेम कंपोजिशन, बस इसमें गवर्नमेंट नॉमिनीज दो होते हैं और काउंसिल नॉमिनीज भी दो होते हैं. क्वेश्चन फॉर ऑनलाइन.
जब मीत को पूछ लिया ना,
ग्रुप को पूछा.
ऑनलाइन पार्टिसिपेंट से पूछो. रोहन.
हाँ सर. मीत
Yes, sir. The answer is disciplinary committee.
The fourth body is appellate authority. Appellate authority is permanently located in Delhi. The appellate authority is the final adjudicatory body. मतलब यहाँ पे अगर कोई भी member या फिर कोई अगर disciplinary director को ऐसा लगता है कि अपील में जाना चाहिए केस, then it goes to the appellate authority. This is governed by section 22A. It has a chairperson who has been or is a judge of high court. Council nominees होते हैं, दो council nominees होते हैं who have served at least 1 full year in the council and they are not currently a sitting member in the council. मतलब वो उन्होंने serve कर दिया पहले, कर चुके हैं वो पहले कर चुके हैं. Government nominees, there are 2 members who are nominated by central government. A member who is the part of appellate authority, they can resign by writing to the central government or central government may itself remove any member on the ground कि कोई misbehavior जो है incapacity के ground पे.
बट वो भी ऐसे डायरेक्टली नहीं कर सकते हैं, कोई ना कोई इंक्वायरी जरूर होगी. विदाउट इंक्वायरी वो किसी को रिमूव नहीं कर सकते.
Question for online.
शोभित.
Answer is Delhi.
So we are going to discuss the phase की कैसे case refer होता है investigation के लिए, then it goes to adjudication and then it goes to appeal if it goes to. First, the director can initiate the investigation on its own. या तो suo motu वो investigation start कर सकता है or by receiving a complaint or information with a fees of 2,500 rupees. A complaint can be withdrawn by submitting a request to board of discipline or the disciplinary committee. That means कि कोई भी complaint अगर आई है तो उसको withdraw भी करा जा सकता है, but the power to withdraw lies with the BOD or the DC. Within a period of 30 days, the directorate has to decide whether it is an actionable or non-actionable case. If the director decides it is a non-actionable case, then it goes to the Board of Discipline within a period of 60 days. However, if it is an actionable case, then it is considered कि वो आगे 21 days के अंदर एक written statement मंगवाए from the member of the firm जिसके खिलाफ ये केस आया है. That means कि 21 days के अंदर मेंबर या फर्म जिसके खिलाफ कोई एक्शन हुआ है उसको एक डिफेंस स्टेटमेंट भेजना होता है. This can be extended up to 21 days more. Upon receiving the defense statement, अगर एक बार डिफेंस स्टेटमेंट आ जाता है तो उसके 21 डेज में जिसने कंप्लेन की थी द कंप्लेनेंट he shall file his response. This response is called rejoinder. मतलब रिप्लाई फॉर्म करके वो भेजेगा. उसके बाद 21 डेज के अंदर वो रिप्लाई रिसीव हो जाना चाहिए बेसिकली. After reviewing the defense statement and the rejoinder, the director forms the prima facie report. This report is then submitted to the BOD or to the DC. अगर BOD को भेजी जा रही है then it is the first schedule, और अगर डिसिप्लिनरी कमेटी को भेजी जा रही है तो सेकंड और द बोर्ड शेड्यूल. If there is no case, then the director submit the complaint and the relevant documents to the BOD. मतलब अगर कोई केस नहीं होता then वो 60 डेज में उनको BOD को भेज देता है. Question for offline. Can a complainant withdraw their complaint once it has been filed with the disciplinary directorate? How?
Over the board of the committee is equal.
Phase 2, adjudication by BOD. When जब डायरेक्टर अपनी प्राइमा फेसी रिपोर्ट बना के BOD को भेजता है, then it initiates a summary procedure. The director can give two opinions, whether it is a guilty case or a non-guilty case. If it is a not guilty case, then the BOD reviews the case again and determines कि इसके केस के merits क्या हैं. अगर वो agree करता है it is not guilty, then it passes an order to close the matter. If it disagrees कि वो guilty है, मतलब not guilty नहीं है, then it may order further investigation, या फिर वो matter disciplinary committee को भेज सकते हैं, or they may itself continue with the summary procedure. If the director gives their opinion as guilty in the prima facie report, then the misconduct falls in the first schedule and the case is conducted as a summary procedure. Now, this the further process is same as जो directorate ने किया था. 21 days में defense statement लेना है, then this can be extended by 21 days. 21 days extend हो सकता है. The whole process from receiving the director's report till giving the order, it shall be completed within a period of 90 days. The BOD has power of civil court. It can summon a witness. It can discover any document, and it can conduct hearing, determine करने के लिए कि member guilty actually में है या नहीं है. And the final order shall be passed within 30 days of finding the guilt. अगर BOD को लगता है कि guilty है, तो it shall pass an order within a period of 30 days from that finding out. And the member must be given an opportunity of being heard. क्या क्या order pass कर सकता है? Reprimand the member, मतलब एक धब्बा लग जाएगा member के ऊपर कि he has misconducted these in this schedule. He can remove the name of the member up to 6 months, or he can impose a fine that can extend up to 2 lakh rupees. So these are the orders जो मतलब BOD pass कर सकता है. Question for all.
निष्ठा निष्ठा
Am
Yes.
I audible?
yes
The answer to question number 6 is 6 months. Six months, for a period of 6 months.
right
Okay, thank you.
Now, adjudication by DC. यहाँ पे भी सेम प्रोसेस, ऑलमोस्ट सेम प्रोसेस फॉलो होता है. द थिंग्स दैट डिफर आर कि अगर डीसी डिसएग्री करता है कि डायरेक्टर का ओपिनियन गिल्टी है, देन इट में क्लोज द मैटर और में डायरेक्ट फर्दर इन्वेस्टिगेशन. यहाँ पे मतलब उल्टा है. और इफ ही अग्रीज विद द गिल्टी ओपिनियन, देन इट प्रोसीड विद द फॉर्मल इंक्वायरी. यहाँ पे भी डिफेंस स्टेटमेंट 21 डेज के अंदर सबमिट करना है. इट कैन बी एक्सटेंडेड बाय 21 डेज. द होल प्रोसेस shall be completed within a period of 180 days. For BOD, it was 90 days, and for disciplinary committee, it is 180 days. The DC has the same powers as the BOD for the civil court. The DC shall also pass the final order within a period of 30 days of the finding of the guilt. The DC can pass the following orders: reprimand the member, remove the member from the register permanently. मतलब वो permanently भी remove कर सकता है या फिर अपने हिसाब से कोई भी specified period वहाँ पे mention कर सकता है. Or it can impose fines up to rupees 10 lakhs for individuals or 50 lakhs for the firms.
रोहन वॉइस नहीं आ रही है.
मानसी. Yes.
Rupees 10 lakh.
Right. The last phase is the appeal. How does an appeal goes? First of all, who is the member or the firm who is agreed by the order of BOD or DC, then it can file an appeal within a period of 90 days from the order. The authority, appellate authority, can extend the period of 90 days by more 90 days if it is मतलब sufficient cause अगर उसको उनको मिल जाए. The director of the discipline can also file an appeal. That means कि director of discipline जो directorate में थे वो भी appeal file कर सकते हैं for the decision, against the decision within a period of 90 days from the order. But this appeal can only be filed if they are authorized by the council. If the council denies it, then they cannot file the appeal. The appellate authority has similar civil court powers, and the authority can pass the following orders. They can confirm, modify, or set aside the original order. They can impose, reduce, or enhance the penalty. They can remit the case back to the BOD or DC, or they can pass any other order as they deem fit. Question for offline. What is the standard appeal window for a member of firm agreed by an order from the BOD or DC? Case study.
So can you just read also so that all are aligned with the case studies?
There was a company. I'm going to read the facts of the case first. There was a chartered accountant who was a statutory auditor of a company. He was conducting the audit, and he gave a report. He mentioned in his audit report that the authorized share capital of the company was 5 lakh rupees, whereas the actual authorized capital was 50 lakh rupees. Now what did came into the light was उसने बोला कि authorized share capital 5 lakh rupees है, whereas the company had allotted 72,660 equity shares of 10 rupees face value on 31st March 2009. This was in excess of 5 lakh rupees. The authorized share capital was increased on 17 June 2009 after the allotment. Then the auditor did not verify the date of resolution. He did not check the ROC filings, and he did not report the irregularity. As a result, he reported incorrect share capital. So whether the chartered accountant is guilty of professional misconduct or not.
Guys,
यहाँ पे ऑडिटर जो है वो फेल हो गया ऑथोराइज कैपिटल को वेरीफाई करने के लिए। बेसिकली क्या होता है, आप ऑथोराइज कैपिटल को कैसे चेक करते हैं? आप ऑडिट में देखेंगे, एमसीए के डेटा पे जाते हैं, मास्टर डेटा करके कंपनी का पूरा फॉर्म निकलता है। वहां से आप ऑथोराइज शेयर कैपिटल, इश्यूड शेयर कैपिटल, वहां से आप क्रॉस वेरीफाई करते हैं, क्योंकि बैलेंस शीट में इक्विटी में सबसे पहला पार्ट इक्विटी शेयर कैपिटल का होता है, तो वहां से क्रॉस वेरीफाई होता है। तो ऑडिटर यहाँ पे वो वेरीफाई करना भूल गए। साथ ही साथ में आरओसी की कंप्लायंसेस, स्टैट्यूटरी ऑडिटर को मैंडेटरी जो आरओसी की कंप्लायंसेस जो कंपनी फॉलो करे उसको ख्याल रखना है। तो यहाँ पे वो चेक करने में फेल हो गया। तो यहाँ पे गिल्टी तो है, और वो किस सेक्शन में है या किस क्लॉज में है? लास्ट टाइम भी बताया था, शेड्यूल 1 की जो क्लॉजेस है इतने भारी नहीं है एज कम्पेयर टू शेड्यूल 2, क्योंकि शेड्यूल 2 अपने आप में बहुत बड़े ऑफेंसेस कवर करता है, जो आप बेसिकली प्रैक्टिस में या उसमें ऑडिटिंग के समय देखते हैं। तो शेड्यूल 2 के ऑफेंसेस मच हायर एज कम्पेयर टू शेड्यूल 1।
So he was guilty of misconduct. There was दोनों शेड्यूल्स यहाँ पे कवर हो रहे हैं। फर्स्ट शेड्यूल भी यहाँ पे कवर हो रहा है और सेकंड शेड्यूल भी यहाँ पे कवर हो रहा है। तो सेकंड शेड्यूल कवर्स मोर, क्योंकि यहाँ पे ड्यू डिलिजेंस की भी बात है, द फेलियर टू रिपोर्ट द misstatements and he did not obtain sufficient evidence before forming his opinion. The second case study will be,
एक सेकंड, उसमें किस किस क्लॉज में वो गिल्टी है वो नहीं।
The facts of the case.
this is the second case study. There was a chartered accountant in practice who had appointed multiple articles in the CA Act. So, as per the regulations, the CA was required to give monthly stipend and ensure कि working hours जो है उसका compliance रहे. But he did not pay monthly stipend on monthly basis, and it was accumulated and paid annually. और जो working hours थे उनके beyond भी काम हो रहा था. So this was whether this is a misconduct, professional misconduct or not.
Yes.
Again, clause.
Professional misconduct or other misconduct? Go by the language. There are 4 parts in first schedule. There is professional misconduct part, there is other misconduct part as well. He just asked whether it is a professional misconduct or not. I'm again saying, go by the word. If you just jump on the answer in paper, then also it would be 0. So guys, is he following the CA Act regulations? Yes or no? So that was covered in first part. I don't think so. Any clauses?
First schedule.
First part,
First part.
no. Second part, service, no. Third part and fourth part related to other misconduct, general and other misconduct. There it was mentioned that bringing case repute, not following CA regulation. So this is
This is covered under की regulations का मैंने बताया था. If the CA is not following the act, regulation or the guidelines issued by the council, the institute, then it is covered. It was covered in the that clause. So it was it is an other misconduct. It is not a professional misconduct. This is case study. There was a CA who was holding valid COP. He entered into a partnership agreement with Electra Tech Solution, and he proceeded with the venture without obtaining prior permission from the ICA Council. That means he was already having a COP. मतलब वो पहले से ही एक practicing chartered accountant था. उसके बाद उसने partnership agreement में enter किया वो, और उसने परमिशन नहीं दिया इसे काउंसिल से। एडिशनली ही टू प्रमोट द न्यू पार्टनरशिप इलेक्ट्राटेक सॉल्यूशंस को प्रमोट करने के लिए, ग्रो करने के लिए, ही यूटिलाइज सेंसिटिव इंफॉर्मेशन ऑफ हिज ओन प्रोप्राइटरी बिजनेस। मतलब जब वो खुद प्रैक्टिस कर रहा था उसकी क्लाइंट इंफॉर्मेशन यूज करके ही he utilized that information for growth of the partnership firm. So whether this is professional misconduct or not.
I think again there are, I guess, multiple cases here, not a single case. Professional misconduct as well as other misconduct. He utilized the sensitive proprietary business information belonging to a former client. There is professional misconduct here. क्लाइंट से बिना पूछे आपने उसकी इंफॉर्मेशन यूज कर ली। दूसरी चीज he entered into a partnership agreement with a firm while holding COP, and for that you need specific permission from IC, and he didn't obtain the same, so it is again covered in general part. Here it is.
So here it is, unauthorized occupation.
इसमें एक चीज है जहाँ पे अपन शेड्यूल 1 पार्ट 1 क्लोज 4 देखते हैं। सीए इन प्रैक्टिस को पार्टनरशिप अलाउड होती है किसी दूसरे सीए इन प्रैक्टिस के साथ, या फिर 53A के रेगुलेशन में जो मेंशन है अदर बॉडी आईसीएसआई या सीएमए उनके साथ अलाउड है। उसके अलावा सीए को अलाउड ही नहीं है किसी के साथ पार्टनरशिप करना। तो प्रोफेशनल मिसकंडक्ट।
अच्छा, डायरेक्ट के अंदर उसके अंदर नहीं आ रहा है इसके अंदर। हाँ, अगर वो डायरेक्टर है उसके अंदर आ रहा है तो वो उसके अंदर
First of all, this is professional misconduct.
पार्टनरशिप
यहाँ पे अनऑथराइज्ड ऑक्यूपेशन मतलब वो एक पार्टनरशिप फर्म में आया which was a non CA, नॉन मेंबर्स के साथ वो पार्टनरशिप में आया। This is covered in the part 1 of the first schedule. Then the second one is breach of confidentiality. It is covered in the second schedule, part 1, where he breached the confidentiality of his own clients. So this is considered a professional misconduct. The last case study for today. Very sorry. There was a CA who was a senior partner of Das and Associates. It is a CA firm. His firm was impaneled on the official panel of auditors, which is maintained by the Office of Registrar of Cooperative Societies. That means कि वो एक ऑफिशियल पैनल में रजिस्टर्ड थी वो फर्म टू एंगेज इन एज एन अपॉइंटमेंट, मतलब उनको अपॉइंट कर सकते थे, कोई भी कोऑपरेटिव सोसाइटी उनको अपॉइंट कर सकती थी। Despite this empanelment, the firm was not allotted any work. So to secure the work, the CA Anil Das initiated a series of correspondence. He wrote letters to the assistant registrar, and in these letters he mentioned कि आप हमें काम दे दीजिए because हमारे पास कोई काम नहीं है. So whether this is considered professional misconduct or not.
Is he asking for work? Continuously bugging people. You can say. Pointed out the lack of assignment and explicitly requested the authority to intervene and ensure that the audit work was granted to his firm. Particular word use किया था क्लॉज के अंदर।
इसमें क्या है कि दो चीज इन्वॉल्व है। शेड्यूल 1 पार्ट 1 क्लॉज 6। सबसे पहले तो किसी भी सेम प्रैक्टिस को अलाउड है किसी भी गवर्नमेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में इम्पैनलमेंट होने के लिए, बट अलाउड नहीं है रोविंग इंक्वायरीज करने के लिए। एक तो वो चीज है। दूसरा, शेड्यूल 1 में पार्ट 1 क्लॉज 5 में ऐसा लिखा है कि सीएम प्रैक्टिस किसी दूसरे सीएम प्रैक्टिस से काम मांग सकता है, उसके अलावा वो किसी से भी काम मांगने के अलाउड नहीं है, क्योंकि वहां पे उसकी इंटेग्रिटी इंडिपेंडेंस हिट हो जाएगी। तो ये यहाँ पे वो दो चीजें हैं। चलो 605
मतलब हाँ वैसे तो ग्रोविंग वाले के
तो
अंदर रह गया
first of all, solicitation of the work. He was soliciting, मतलब एडवर्टाइजमेंट, पर्सनल कम्युनिकेशन, इंटरव्यू करके वो किसी भी मीन से वर्क को सोलिसिट कर रहा था. And impermissible versus improper inquiries. He was making inquiries in the government organization. So he was roving inquiries. Thank you.
So before continuing with our next speaker, as we had a discussion in our last session that I would discuss with you few case laws that happened in real life and why ethics committee, if the code of ethics was present at that time, and if the disciplinary committee and board of discipline was present. So just tell me what would be a change as per you, and whether that case that is now being marked as an Indian Enron case, also known as Satyam case, would it happen or not? That case happened in 2008. The Code of Ethics first edition came in 2009. After seeing various things, ESB was also formed. Considering IESB Act. So what happened in case of Satyam? Just a glimpse. Anyone? Like last time we had a discussion, and I guess many of you have gone through the news as well, or just heard about it. If anyone is interested in finance part, the marketing and all. Satyam case का नाम किसको नहीं पता? Anyone has gone through the Ramalingam Raju name? The founder of Satyam, who just dashed down the shares of Satyam from 644 to 6 rupees and 30 paise in a day per share value, which devastated the whole Bombay Stock Exchange industry. The case that seemed like, can it happen in real life? He just blatantly spoke at 9:25 over the CNBC News and other news channels, the business news channels to be specific, that the cash in our balance sheet is not present. The investment that you see in our balance sheet are not present. The employees that you see as 200 are only 10 or 15. There are so many impatience in our financials. It is not present. And I'm sorry, I'm just resigning from my authority as from the BODs. And that's it. That was his signing off letter, like bye bye Tata. I did these things. And the share which was trading at as the highest trading price. At that point, everyone is interested in that Satyam company share. Satyam Computers, I don't know the whole name, Satyam Computers INC or something, it was like that. Everyone at that point, if you ask with like your chacha, your father or anyone, they would say definitely some of them would be holding 1 or 2 share of that company. Yeah, Satyam was something that gave them fortunes at that time. And that share just got rolled down from 644 to 6 rupees, a penny stock. And then Tata just acquired that later on in the stage. But yeah, if code of ethics was there, and if the schedules that you have just went through, revisited, because in detail you visited that in the last session, And today you again revisited them along with what are the penalties that would be imposed on a person if they don't follow or don't abide by the code of ethics. So what do you think would be the scenario of Satyam if I just give you a hypothecation that in 2007 the ethics committee was there, the code of ethics was there, and the schedules were there? What would it be prevented in its earlier stage? Just a yes or no would be fine by me also. I'm not saying that you have to go by everything. Yeah. And was there a negligence of due diligence there by the auditor? Was the auditor Ernst and Young? PwC थी. So EY and PwC दोनों का था. पहले EY थी उससे, फिर उसका 5 साल का आया, वो बच गई. जिस समय निकला उस समय PwC. और PwC का, sorry, again, I'm not going about the flow. PwC again, that case, after that case, there was another case, ILFS crisis. ILFS is a financial institution which lends money to the infrastructure companies like DLF के मॉल से क्यों आपने इधर in Rajasthan it's Mangalam, Mahima, in Delhi, NCR or other region it's DLF. So what is the primary purpose of ILFS? It was lending money to these companies. And what was the pin point found? Like what was the pain point here in the financial statement there? The debt equity ratio. What is an ideal debt equity ratio? What if I say it is 18.7 ratio 1? The high time you just quit from that company for a shareholder or for any investor. 18 times that of an equity is a debt. And if that is continued for continuous 3 years, it was not in a single year. It was for consecutive 3 years. And they were just saying in the audit report that they have cash and bank balance, the cash and cash equivalents are being present, and it is with a subsidiary which is located in Cayman Islands. You know, Cayman Islands is a place very good, Mauritius and all. It's a good tax evasion place for every MNC company. So they mentioned that every time. An auditor also said, okay, it's yeah, we have checked that. And at the end, when it was concluded, it was found that auditor never cross-verified that cash and bank balance was even present or not. So though that subsidiary was just a bogus entry. And that led to again the ILFS crisis. And they did the amount was equivalent to 91,000 crore. We are going by Kusum.
There are 17 council guidelines to council, which are practical rules issued by ICI under the Code of Ethics. These guidelines are issued by Institute of Chartered Accountants of India under the Chartered Accountants Act 1949, and they are applicable to all members, whether in practice or employment. Chapter 2 talks about conduct of a member being an employee. So a chartered accountant working as an employee must exercise professional care and due diligence. He shall not be grossly negligent in the conduct of his professional duties. So even as an employee, ethical responsibility is equally important. Chapter 3 and 4 are omitted. Chapter 5 talks about maintenance of books of account. So every chartered accountant in practice or a firm shall maintain proper books of accounts. At a minimum, they should maintain cash book and ledger. Failure to maintain the books of accounts will be deemed to be a professional misconduct, even if the income limits are below the income tax provision. So यहाँ पर ICI के जो provisions है, they override the income tax provisions. Question for offline participants. and a chartered accountant did not maintain books of accounts for his professional earnings on the ground that his income is less than the limits prescribed under section 44A of the Income Tax Act, is he guilty of professional misconduct? Yes. Right, Mr. L is guilty of professional misconduct as maintenance of books of account is mandatory irrespective of income tax provisions. Chapter 4 talks about the tax audit assignments under section 44AB of Income Tax Act. In case of a member in practice, these specified number of tax audit assignments are applicable in a financial year, and in case of firms the limit will be applicable per partner. And अगर कोई भी partner एक से ज़्यादा अगर कोई भी चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट एक से ज़्यादा फर्म में पार्टनर है तो एग्रीगेट लिमिट सारे फर्म्स पे एप्लीकेबल होगी। एंड अगर उस सीए ने इंडिविजुअल कैपेसिटी में भी कोई असाइनमेंट एक्सेप्ट किया होगा तो वो भी उसकी ओवरऑल लिमिट में काउंट होगी। एंड ऑडिट एक्सेप्टेड अंडर सेक्शन 44AD, ADA and 44AE will not be counted. So chartered accountant in practice or a proprietary firm is allowed to accept 60 audit assignments in a financial year, and in case of a firm the limit is 60 per partner, whether in respect of corporate or non-corporate activity. Each year की जो audit assignments होंगे वो separately count होंगे, and audit of head office and branch office will be counted as one. And अगर उस firm में कोई भी part-time practicing chartered accountant है तो उसकी limit count नहीं की जाएगी, जब हम पूरे फर्म की ओवरऑल लिमिट काउंट करते हैं तब। और चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट इन प्रैक्टिस और फर्म ऑफ चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स उनको रिकॉर्ड्स मेंटेन करने पड़ेंगे जितने भी टैक्स ऑडिट्स उन्होंने फाइनेंशियल ईयर में करी। क्वेश्चन फॉर ऑनलाइन पार्टिसिपेंट्स।
आदित्य बंसल।
G is a partner in methods XYZ and Co, a firm of chartered accountants with 6 partners. During the assessment year 23-24, Mr. G alone signed 290 tax audit reports consisting of both corporate and non-corporate affiliates. Is this allowed?
आदित्य बंसल। मैं अंदर बैठूंगा। ठीक, अंदर बैठा।
Offline participants.
अपूर्वा। ठीक। क्यों खड़ा हो? आंसर करो।
काफी अच्छे भी उदाहरण हैं, काफी अच्छे भी उदाहरण
यहाँ से कोई बता रहा है?
It is allowed because जो लिमिट है वो एक्सेप्टेंस का है टाइम पे नहीं है। अगर कोई भी फर्म में जैसे यहाँ पे इस फर्म में 6 पार्टनर्स हैं तो इस फर्म की ओवरऑल लिमिट विल बी 360। अब वो 360 असाइनमेंट जो है वो पार्टनर अपने बीच में किसी भी मैनर में वो डिस्ट्रीब्यूट कर सकते हैं एंड कोई भी पार्टनर साइन कर सकता है प्रोवाइडेड टू ओवरऑल लिमिट इज विद इन द लिमिट ऑफ फर्म। Chapter 7 talks about appointment of an auditor in case of non-payment of fees. अगर कोई भी कंपनी अपने स्टैट्यूटरी ऑडिटर की फी पे नहीं करती है फॉर एनी अनजस्टिफाइड रीजन तो कोई और दूसरा चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट उस फर्म में एज स्टैट्यूटरी ऑडिटर अपॉइंटमेंट एक्सेप्ट नहीं कर सकता। यहाँ पे अनडिस्प्यूटेड ऑडिट फीस का मतलब है ऑडिट फी रिकॉर्डेड इन फाइनेंशियल स्टेटमेंट व्हिच इज साइंड एंड एग्रीड बाय बोथ ऑडिटर एंड ऑडिटी and all other expenses incurred by the auditor in relation to the audit. लेकिन ये provision SIC units के केस में apply नहीं होता है। SIC units यानी वो units which are registered for not less than 5 years and which have in any financial year accumulated losses इक्वल टू और एक्सीडिंग इट्स नेटवर्क। तो इन सिंपल टर्म्स सिक्योरिटीज का मतलब है किसी भी यूनिट की नेटवर्क है और वो नेगेटिव है तो दैट विल बी कंसीडर्ड एज अ सिक्योरिटी। एंड सिक्योरिटीज में गवर्नमेंट कंपनीज और पीएसयूज जाते हैं। क्वेश्चन फॉर ऑनलाइन पार्टिसिपेंट्स।
भास्कर,
C accepted the statutory audit of PSU Limited, whose net worth is negative for the year 22-23. The audit was to be conducted for the year 23-24. The audited accounts for the year 23-24 showed liability for payment of tax audit fees of 15,000 in favor of Mr. E, the previous auditor. Is Mr. C guilty of professional misconduct?
ठीक, सब बात कर दिया था, हमें नहीं आता। असबराड़िया,
Yes. No, he will not be guilty as he has accepted the audit of a PSU or SIC unit.
Chapter 8 talks about specified number of audit assignments. The member shall not accept more than the specified number of audit assignments in financial year. In case of a firm, the specified number applies per partner and अगर कोई भी चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट एक फर्म से ज्यादा पार्टनर है, मल्टीपल फर्म्स में पार्टनर है, तो लिमिट जो है वो ओवर ऑल फर्म्स पे अप्लाई होगी एंड इट आल्सो इंक्लूड्स द असाइनमेंट्स एक्सेप्टेड इन इंडिविजुअल कैपेसिटी. So a chartered accountant in practice or a proprietary firm can accept 30 audit assignments in any financial year, and in case of a firm, the limit is 30 per partner. Whether in respect of private companies or other companies, but exception has been given to one-person companies and government companies. The number of audits accepted individually or in combination with other CAs will be taken into account. An audit of head office and branch office will be counted as one. An audit of one or more branches of the same company by one CA will be counted as one. And for calculating the limit of the firm's number of partners on the date of acceptance shall be taken into account. Chapter 9, Appointment as Statutory Auditor. So in case of PSUs, government companies, listed companies and other public companies with turnover equals to or exceeds 50 crores, अगर इन कंपनीज में किसी भी स्टैट्यूटरी किसी भी चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट ने कोई सर्विसेज प्रोवाइड करी है अदर देन स्टैट्यूटरी ऑडिट, जैसे कि मैनेजमेंट कंसल्टेंसी या फिर कोई और अदर सर्विसेज अगर प्रोवाइड करी है और उनकी जो रेम्यूनरेशन है वो स्टैट्यूटरी ऑडिट फीस से एक्सीड कर रही है, तो वो चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट उस कंपनी का स्टैट्यूटरी ऑडिटर अपॉइंट नहीं हो सकता. एंड व्हाइल कैलकुलेटिंग द लिमिट, audit conducted under other statutes, certification, work and representation before authorities. अगर ये तीन सर्विसेज में कोई भी सर्विस प्रोवाइड की है तो कोई इंक्लूड नहीं होगी. इनके अलावा कोई और अदर सर्विस अगर आप प्रोवाइड कर रहे हो जिसकी रेम्यूनरेशन ऑडिट फीस से एक्सीड कर रही है तो आप उस कंपनी के एज स्टैट्यूटरी ऑडिटर अपॉइंट नहीं हो सकते. क्वेश्चन फॉर ऑफलाइन पार्टिसिपेंट्स. A is auditor of Z Limited with a turnover of 200 crores. The audit fee for the year is fixed at 50 lakh rupees. During the year, the company offers A an assignment of management consultancy for a remuneration of 1 crore. Can A accept the management consultancy assignment?
मीनिंग
Cannot give the statutory authority. That was the single exception. चाहे तो मैनुअल कंसल्टेंसी कर सकते हैं.
आपको कंसल्टेंसी जो फीस है वो ऑडिट फीस से एक्सीड कर रही है, तो अगर एक्सेप्ट करेगा सीए तो दैट विल बी डीम्ड टू बी अ प्रोफेशनल मिसकंडक्ट. Chapter 10 is about appointment of an auditor when he is indebted to a concern. If a chartered accountant is indebted to a concern or he has provided any guarantee or security in relation to the indebtedness of any third party to the company, then he is not allowed to be appointed as an statutory auditor of that company. यहाँ पे लिमिट सप्लाई होगी इफ एनी अदर स्टैट्यूट या जो अप्लाई हो रहा है उस कंपनी पे अगर वो स्टैट्यूट में कोई लिमिट दी गई है तो दैट लिमिट इज बी एप्लीकेबल एंड इन केस दैट स्टैट्यूट इज साइलेंट देन अ लिमिट ऑफ 1 lakh rupees will be applicable. Chapter 11 is about unjustified removal. If a company removes its statutory auditor for any unjustified reasons, then the incoming auditor shall not accept the appointment in such cases. Chapter 12 is repealed by ICAI and Chapter 13 is about tenders. अगर कोई भी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन या कोई भी सर्विस प्रोवाइडर्स अपने टेंडर्स इशू करते हैं जिसमें रिगार्डिंग सर्विसेज के लिए अगर वो टेंडर है which can be exclusively provided only by chartered accountants, तो chartered accountants को ऐसे टेंडर्स एक्सेप्ट नहीं करने हैं. वो सिर्फ 2 केसेस में ऐसे टेंडर्स एक्सेप्ट कर सकते हैं अगर उसमें मिनिमम फीस प्रिस्क्राइब है या फिर वो सीएस के साथ साथ अदर प्रोफेशंस के लिए भी अगर वो टेंडर ओपन है तब वो एक्सेप्ट कर सकते हैं. क्वेश्चन फॉर ऑनलाइन पार्टिसिपेंट्स.
Anush,
XYZ Bank issued tender for statutory audit services without specifying minimum fee. Can CAs respond?
No, sir.
Right. Here CAs can respond only if it is open for other professionals as well. Chapter 14, it talks about UDIN, which stands for Unique Document Identification Number. So ICAI has introduced the concept of UDIN to prevent the misuse of CA signatures and to eliminate fake or false certificates being issued in the profession. So it says that every certificate or GST and tax audit reports or other attestation functions, it is mandatory for a CA to generate UDIN for all these certificates. In case of certificate, it was mandatory to generate UDIN from 1st February 2019. GST and tax audit reports were applicable from 1st April 2019. And in case of audit, assurance, and other attestation functions, it was applicable from 1st July 2019. Chapter 15. Now we will discuss the concept of network. 2 or more CA firms usually form a large structure to provide better and wider professional services. Abhi, a large network will constitute a large structure will constitute a network or not. It will depend on the facts and circumstances of the case and not just on the legal structure. अगर वो structure profit and cost share कर रहा है, if it has common control over the management or other things, and they share same business strategies, branding, and significant professional resources. Professional resources जैसे shared pool of staff हो गया या फिर same technicians हो गए, or if they are sharing same client data, information वगैरह होगी, then it will constitute as a network. The different types of forms in which a network can be constituted is mutual entity, partnership firm with maximum 20 partners, LLP, or a company. So a firm has to apply for the approval of its name, and to distinguish a network from the firm, it should name of the network should include the words and affiliates as its suffix. The firm should apply in Form A and with the institute for approval of the name, and the institute will approve the name within a period of 30 days. Mere approval doesn't mean you can start the practice. As soon as it is approved, the institute will reserve the name for a period of 3 months. इस पीरियड में आपको नेटवर्क को रजिस्टर करवाना है आईसीआई के साथ, and if you fail to get it registered, then the reserved name shall stand cancelled by the ICAI. If a Indian firm has joined a network outside India, then it has to file a declaration in Form D with the ICAI within 30 days of joining such networks. और firms are allowed to join only one network and अगर कोई भी चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट एक से ज्यादा फर्म में पार्टनर है तो वो जो फर्म्स है वो सिर्फ एक ही नेटवर्क को ज्वाइन कर सकती है दैट इज फर्म्स विद कॉमन पार्टनर्स मस्ट ज्वाइन ओनली सेम नेटवर्क एथिकल कंप्लायंस फॉर नेटवर्क्स अगर नेटवर्क फर्म में से कोई भी फर्म एज स्टैट्यूटरी ऑडिटर अपॉइंट होती है किसी भी कंपनी की देन अदर मेंबर फर्म्स दे कैन नॉट एक्सेप्ट और दे कैन नॉट go for internal audits, bookkeeping or other assignments of that company. मतलब वो internal audit या कोई भी other assignments company के accept नहीं कर सकते. Non audit fee ceiling. अगर नेटवर्क फर्म में से कोई भी फर्म ऐसे स्टैट्यूटरी ऑडिटर अपॉइंट होती है किसी भी एंटिटी की तो जो अदर मेंबर फर्म्स ऑफ द नेटवर्क वो सर्विसेज प्रोवाइड कर सकती है अदर देन द ऑडिट लेकिन उसकी जो लिमिट होगी मतलब वो सर्विसेज की जो रेम्यूनरेशन होगी दैट शैल नॉट एक्सीड द 3 टाइम्स ऑफ स्टैट्यूटरी ऑडिट फीस रोटेशन रेस्ट्रिक्शंस अगर नेटवर्क फर्म में से किसी भी फर्म पे रोटेशन अप्लाई होता है किसी भी कंपनी के रिगार्डिंग तो रोटेशन अदर मेंबर फर्म्स पे भी एप्लीकेबल होता है एंड वो रोटेशन पूरे नेटवर्क फर्म्स पे एप्लीकेबल होगा एडवर्टाइजिंग गाइडलाइंस network may advertise as per institute guidelines and firms can use network forms on professional stationery. Chapter 16 talks about logo guidelines. So a chartered accountant or a firm can use the logo issued by the ICI. The letter CA must be in blue color with tricolor tick mark upside down on white background. India added to symbolize connection to Indian economy. Now यहाँ पे हर एक कलर का एक सिग्निफिकेंस है जैसे ब्लू डिनोट्स क्रिएटिविटी इनोवेटिवनेस नॉलेज इंटीग्रिटी ट्रस्ट ट्रुथ स्टेबिलिटी एंड डेप्थ टिक मार्क सिंबलाइजेस विजडम एंड प्रोफेशनल वैल्यू
So now about the logo. You guys have definitely went through the CA logo many times. You have seen whether if you have gone through in your relatives or any known people, the logo, the sticker can be seen at on the cars, or sometimes they use it even with their stationery, like maybe the laptop or maybe the other items. So what is the correct one here? Though it is mentioned here, answer, but why not the right or that second light blue color? Doesn't it look fascinating? And why can't we just cut short it and crop it somehow? Can we crop? We can't. And the italics, bold and everything. Why can't? Why are there such strict guidelines regarding to the same? The logo in itself signifies something. She just told you about the color that are used in that logo. They signify something. And before this, there was a simple tick, like not the tricolor part. There was simple tick in the CA logo. It was just like that, but not the Bharat one, the national flag one. And the tricolor one is a more of like a modern touch to it, and just it also represents the glorious part of India. So in this logo, you can't do addition or deletion, and कभी ऊपर से काट दो नीचे से काट दो italic के अंदर यूज करके letterhead पे लगा दो. Even in letterhead, if you have seen, we have gone through the letterheads of Kalahin company. The CA logo is, you have to mention it properly. And if you have worked closely with any partner, any senior there who has closely worked with partner, if there is error on your end while printing the audit report or anything, and definitely the person would tell you that you should do the same, because these are the strict guidelines that everyone abides by.
You cannot make any alterations to the logo. मतलब आप fonts, color, इसके dimensions जो है वो आप change नहीं कर सकते, आप इसको rotate या tilt नहीं कर सकते, and logo को आप छोटा या बड़ा यानी crop भी नहीं कर सकते, and 1 year of transition period is provided because जब अभी logo भी change हुआ था, तो 1 year of transition period was provided to the existing fonts. Chapter 17 is about guidelines for corporate form of practice. So chartered accountant in practice, he can hold position as a managing director, full-time director, or a manager in a management consultancy company, which is engaged in exclusively providing management consultancy services. Now, while holding such position, he can retain full-time certificate of practice, and there will be no restrictions on the quantum of equity holding of such partner, and he will still be considered in full-time practice, and he can continue attestation services. It is also permitted to trade article or audit assistance. So management consultancy company must get its name approved from the ICAI, and it must also get itself registered with the ICAI. It shall also comply with clauses 6 and 7 of part 1 of first schedule, where clause 6 was about soliciting customers for professional work, and clause 7 talks about advertising attainments or improper use of designations, which was discussed by Manas. So a chartered accountant, he cannot do audit practice in such corporate form. This company is allowed only for a management consultancy services. Next, we will discuss the concept of guidelines for advertisements. So a chartered accountant is allowed to advertise only through write-ups, subject to maintaining the profession's reputation, dignity, and interest of public service. The write-up must be honest and truthful. It should not contain any exaggeration, claims, or discouraging references about other firms. यानी कि आप write-up में ये नहीं बता सकते कि we provide services seniority to others. हमारी services दूसरों से ज़्यादा better है. ये सारी चीज़ें आप write-up में नहीं लिख सकते. And the content of the write-up should maintain professional dignity. It should not bring a profession into disrepute. And it is important to note that the ICAI does not approve any of such write-ups, and it does not take the responsibility for the content mentioned. So the information which can be mentioned in the write-ups is personal details of the members, such as their name, membership number, age, date of becoming ACA or FCM, the date from when they are holding the certificate of practice, their qualifications, the contact information, personal details, their पासपोर्ट साइज फोटोग्राफ्स या वो क्या क्या सर्विसेज प्रोवाइड करते हैं, उनके अंदर कितने चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स या आर्टिकल्स या फिर अदर एम्प्लॉयज काम कर रहे हैं और उनकी डिटेल्स, एंड अगर उन्होंने कोई पोजीशन होल्ड कर रखी है एज मैनेजिंग डायरेक्टर, फुल टाइम डायरेक्टर या मैनेजर ऑफ अ मैनेजमेंट कंसल्टेंसी कंपनी, तो वो भी वो राइटर्स में मेंशन कर सकते हैं. इन केस ऑफ अ फर्म की डिटेल्स, फर्म का नाम, फर्म रजिस्ट्रेशन नंबर, year of establishment, address and contact details, फॉर्म में कितने पार्टनर्स हैं, उनके नाम और उनके पासपोर्ट साइज फोटोग्राफ्स भी प्रोवाइड कर सकते हैं, एंड फॉर्म में कितने चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स काम कर रहे हैं, आर्टिकल्स और अदर एम्प्लॉइज एंड उसकी डिटेल्स एंड द सर्विसेज प्रोवाइडेड बाय द फर्म, एंड अगर फर्म ने कोई नेटवर्क ज्वाइन कर रखा हो तो उसके बारे में भी मेंशन कर सकते हैं. However, certain things are strictly prohibited in write-ups. आपके क्लाइंट्स कौन है और उनसे आप क्या फीस चार्ज कर सकते हो ये आप मेंशन नहीं कर सकते हो, एंड आपके अचीवमेंट्स एंड अवार्ड्स क्या है ये भी आप मेंशन नहीं कर सकते हो. लेकिन अगर आपको सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट, स्टेट गवर्नमेंट या किसी रेगुलेटरी बॉडी से आपको कोई अवार्ड मिला है तो वो चीज आप मेंशन कर सकते हो. फोनोग्राम्स यानी कि लोगो अदर देन द सीए लोगो आप मेंशन नहीं कर सकते, या फिर कोई भी ऐसे कैची फ्रेज आप मेंशन नहीं कर सकते राइटर्स में. एंड द फॉन्ट साइज ऑफ द राइटर शुड नॉट एक्सीड 14 पॉइंट साइज, ensuring it is simple and non-promotional. Next, website guidelines for CA firms. The website of CA firms must operate only on a full model, meaning the information must be displayed only on a specific request by the user. It should not operate on a push technology, यानी कि आप you cannot circulate through emails or automatic pop-ups without the user specifically requiring for it. मतलब वेबसाइट पर अगर यूजर आपकी कोई इंफॉर्मेशन के लिए रिक्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं या क्लिक कर रहे हैं वहां पे तभी आपको वो इन्फॉर्मेशन डिस्प्ले करनी है. आप ऑटोमेटिकली पॉपअप्स के थ्रू या ईमेल्स के थ्रू वो इन्फॉर्मेशन प्रोवाइड नहीं कर सकते यूजर को. एंड वेबसाइट एड्रेस मस्ट बी नियर इंडिविजुअल और ट्रेड और फर्म नेम. आपको क्लाइंट की इंफॉर्मेशन कॉन्फिडेंशियलिटी प्रोटोकॉल्स मेंटेन करनी होगी. You cannot advertise through banners, and you must mention that information mentioned in the website should not differ materially from ICI reports.
What is an example of a push technology being used on a website? She mentioned push pull. So you can use pull method, not a push. Just name a website where they use push technology. Any e-commerce website? Just any e-commerce website. Definitely no need to think much on Amazon, Flipkart, Myntra, or what is it, Nykaa. These all definitely they use push method. Why? Because they are heavily dependent on their advertising.
Permissible website management. आपके website पे फॉर्म information
विंडो बत्तर उसको स्क्रीन सेव क्या
permissible website content. Website पे आप फॉर्म की डिटेल्स मेंशन कर सकते हो. Members, trade or firm name, year of establishment, address and contact details. Partners and employees की डिटेल्स आप मेंशन कर सकते हो जैसे कि उनका नाम, उनकी क्वालिफिकेशन, उनका मोबाइल नंबर, ईमेल एड्रेस एंड एक्सपीरियंसेस. अगर कोई जॉब वैकेंसी है फॉर सीए एंड आर्टिकल्स वो भी आप वेबसाइट पे मेंशन कर सकते हो. And different kinds of services provided by the firm or chartered accountants. And visual content such as passport style photographs of partners and educational videos can be displayed on website. Key restrictions and requirements. वेबसाइट पे आप अपने क्लाइंट्स के नाम और उनसे कितनी फीस चार्ज की है या डिस्प्ले नहीं कर सकते. You cannot do banner advertisements or promotional banners. Unprofessional material आप कुछ डिस्प्ले नहीं कर सकते. You cannot solicit clients or professional work. And you should follow adequate client confidentiality protocols. Or your website should be linked to ICI website and regulatory authorities. And information displayed on the website must be matching ICI records. आप क्लाइंट के नाम या उनसे कितनी फीस चार्ज की है ये आप डिस्प्ले कर सकते हो वेबसाइट पे if it is required by any regulator. And in such a case, you must include a disclaimer in italics stating that it is required by a regulatory authority. Online third-party platforms. So some online third-party platforms such as non-CA firms, corporates, including banks or finance companies and newspapers, they on their website provide services such as audit and other services which are exclusively provided by chartered accountants. So in such a case, they may request any chartered accountant to provide services through their website. So chartered accountant can accept such things and he should only render consultancy and advisory services through such website. And his contact address or his he should not advertise through such websites. वेबसाइट पे वो बस अपना नाम और वो ये बता सकते हैं वो चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट है लेकिन आप अपना एड्रेस या कोई भी और एडवर्टाइजमेंट नहीं कर सकते ऐसे वेबसाइट पे। टेलीफोन एंड डायरेक्टरी लिस्टिंग। So CA can advertise through telephone and directory listings. Entries in such directory must appear only under the chartered accountant category. The member of firm must belong to the same town or city where the directory is published, and entries must follow alphabetical orders. Entry cannot appear in differential or prominent manner suggesting advertisement, मतलब promotional point of view से कोई भी entry नहीं होनी चाहिए उसमें, and those entries must be open to all CA firms in the city or town.
That is a modern name of telephone and directory listing. Or you can say a modern website, which is also a telephone directory, providing a telephone directory. No. You said two colors. Okay, advertisement is being done by Amitabh Bachchan. उसका जो ब्रांड एम्बेसडर थे अमिताभ बच्चन थे सबसे पहले जब आया जस्ट आई Come on, man. You guys are not updated. मैं कौन सा किताब लिख रहा हूँ जिस अभी चल नेटफ्लिक्स के ऊपर कौन सा नया सारे जूनियर हैं special cases and exemption.
Based segregation. A chartered accountant in practice is not permissible to list with online service provider aggregators where other business categories are listed. For example, जैसे urban company है, वहाँ पे other business categories जैसे plumbers हो गए, technicians हो गए, electricians या फिर makeup artists भी listed हैं. तो ऐसी online सर्विस एप्लीकेशन पे सीए अपने आप का एडवर्टाइज नहीं कर सकते. Specialized directories. A CA or a firm's name can appear in directories of particular bodies or publications such as Who's Who. उसमें भी आप सिर्फ अपना नाम, एड्रेस और अपने प्रोफेशनल डिस्क्रिप्शन ही प्रोवाइड कर सकते हो. Who's Who it is a publication जहाँ पे इन्फ्लुएंशियल पर्सनालिटीज के बारे में लिखा जाता है. उसमें भी आप सिर्फ अपना नाम, एड्रेस, यही चीजें आप मेंशन कर सकते हो. उसमें कोई भी प्रमोशनल कंटेंट नहीं होना चाहिए. Next, there are certain exemptions provided to CAs regarding advertisements. आप प्रेस एडवर्टाइजमेंट रिलीज कर सकते हो फॉर स्टाफ रिक्रूटमेंट, बट उसमें भी आप कोई प्रमोशनल कंटेंट आपको मेंशन नहीं करना है, या फिर आप अपने फर्म का नाम या फिर आप ये नहीं बता सकते कि दिस इज द बेस्ट फर्म और वी प्रोवाइड सर्विसेज बेटर देन अदर फर्म. ऐसी चीज आप मेंशन नहीं कर सकते उसमें. एंड इफ यू आर एडवर्टाइजिंग ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ अ क्लाइंट for recruitment of staff or for acquiring or disposing of property or business, ये भी allowed है. And if you are advertising for sale of any business or property, being a member in professional capacity such as the trustee, liquidator or receiver, then it is allowed. Next concept is about council guidelines for conversion of a CA firms into LLP. Conversion of CA firms into LLP is governed by the provisions of Chapter 10 of LLP Act, read in second schedule, subject to Chartered Accountant Act, ICI regulations, and Code of Ethics. In addition, guidelines issued by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs will also be complied with. Conversion process for CA firms. If a firm is planning to convert into an LLP, the proposed name of the LLP must be registered with the ICAI. If the name of the proposed LLP contains the word chartered accountant or chartered accountants, then the name will be referred to ICAI by registrar of LLP and it shall be approved by the secretary of ICAI. Then the firm shall get the LLP registered with the ICAI by applying in ICAI form number 117 and form number 118. along with the name registration copy, which was provided by the registrar of LLP. These forms shall include all details of the firm and shall be signed by all the chartered accountants or authorized representative of such LLP. And the name of the LLP shall only include the suffix such as, for example, X and Co LLP or X and Associates. Any other suffixes is not allowed. Seniority rules. Seniority among firms given to LLP as per existing ICAI policy. इसका मतलब ये है कि अगर कोई भी firm, for example, 2000 से established है and it was converted into LLP in 2025, तो firm का जो experience होगा वो LLP का जो experience होगा वो same firm का जो था वो होगा, that is since 2000. So the seniority level of the firm will be applicable to LLP as well. And LLP का जो registration number होगा that will be same as the firm registration number. LLP shall work only in terms of section 2, subsection 2 of Chartered Accountants Act, and the objects of such LLP must reflect professional services. And partnership firm पे जो rules applicable थे वो इसे LLP पे भी applicable होंगे. जो चीजें firm पे applicable नहीं थी या prohibited थी वो चीजें LLP में भी prohibited रहेंगी. And CA Act 1949, ICAI regulations and code of ethics will be applicable to all partners jointly and severally. Firm merger and conversion. Seniority provided to surviving entity as per ICAI policy, and non-converted firms maintain same seniority position related to converted LLP. यानी कि कोई भी फर्म अगर LLP में कन्वर्ट होकर फिर कन्वर्ट होती है तो वो उसकी जो सीनियरिटी लेवल है दैट विल बी सेम जो फर्म पे एप्लीकेबल थी. एंड स्टैट्यूटरी ऑडिटर कंटिन्यूटी. अगर कोई भी फर्म एज स्टैट्यूटरी ऑडिटर अपॉइंट होती है किसी भी एंटिटी की तो उस कंपनी के जो बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स है दे शैल रिकॉर्ड दिस कन्वर्जन वाया रेजोल्यूशन एंड देन द LLP शैल एक्ट एज द स्टैट्यूटरी ऑडिटर ऑफ दैट कंपनी. These guidelines shall also be applicable to conversion of proprietary firm into LLP by way of incorporation of new LLP. Thank you.
So a question on the last note. Why to get converted into an LLP from a partnership firm? Why should a partnership firm consider to get itself converted into LLP? Anyone? Guys, this is related to the LLP Act, and I guess you have read that in Foundation. कैसे करेगा? Like example. हाँ. मतलब इधर दोनों हाथों में लड्डू. लिमिटेड लाइबिलिटी हो जाती है. इन केस ऑफ पार्टनरशिप फर्म देयर इज अनलिमिटेड लाइबिलिटी. इन लिमिटेड लाइबिलिटी फॉर LLP in LLP there is limited liability. And what do you mean by limited liability and unlimited liability? I guess that's a common term that can be answered. Guys.
That unlimited liability, the personal assets can be held accountable for the losses of the firm, but under the like limited liability, the personal assets can't be.
और पर्सनल एसेट मतलब मेरे घर आ जाएंगे. All good now?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sukhri, and I'll be covering the topic of ethical standard code and no cloud framework in the code of ethics. Firstly, let's see about ethical standard code. So the ethical standard board is a non-standing committee of ICA. It's primarily responsible for regulating, updating the code of ethics and also uphold the ethical standard for the CA profession in India. It has also issued the code of ethics and related pronouncement and also maintain integrity and public trust in the profession. So the current leadership includes CA Preeti Savla as the chairperson, CA Dayanivat Sharma as the vice chairman, and CA Kuldeep Vashisht as the secretary. So today we'll be discussing the recent announcements, clarifications, and proposed changes which are issued by the board. So first announcement was regarding the use of chartered accountant or CA designation on social media. Let's see what is permitted and what is not. So what is permitted for a CA firm is that they can have their own social media accounts and they can mention their name and the content as per the advertisement guidelines. And they can also attach a link to their website. So members in practice, they can also represent themselves as the partner or proprietor of the specific firm. They can mention it on their social media account and they can also attach a link to their website. The members in practice and in service, they can post social media, they can post educational videos or social media content on their social media account. What is not allowed? So let's see that. Anybody cannot post any derogatory words or content which may portray the profession negatively. If it is found that they have mentioned or they have posted some content, so that will be considered as a violation under the CA Act 1949. So even if any person is posting content from their personal account, which is not related to their profession, they need to ensure that the content is of utmost dignity. Another clarification issued by the board is there was a myth going on that if in case the previous audit fees has not been paid by the company, the continuing auditor for the current year need not sign the audit report. So there was this myth going on. ICAI has issued a clarification regarding this that there is no blanket restriction on this and that is the continuing auditor can sign the audit report. Firstly, the Code of Ethics also wants us to look into the aspects of independence and self-interest threat. So wherever there is a threat, there needs to be, we need to apply specific safeguards. Safeguards such as we can discuss our undue fees with the management and TCWG. If we can also evaluate if the undue fees of significant amount in relation to the total firm's fees. We can also try to recover, we can also take steps to recover the undue fees in partially or in full amount before signing the audit report. And we need to evaluate whether the independence will be continued in the continuing audit. If it is not, then the auditor needs to recheck its independence requirements. In continuation with the fees, audit fees, this requirements, the institute has also provided certain mandatory disclosures for the audit firms. So the client type might be dependent on whether the entity is a public interest entity or a non-public interest entity. So public interest entities are basically those which have a large number of stakeholders involved. Any client which is a public interest entity or not depends upon factors such as size and nature of business and the number of employees employed. And a few examples could be entities listed on the stock exchange, banks, insurance company, and pension fund companies. So if the client is a non-public interest entity and the specific fees, audit fees or any fees from that specific entity exceeds 40% of the total firm's fees for a period of 2 consecutive years, then the audit firm needs to disclose it to the institute. And if the entity is a public interest entity and the total fees exceeds 20% of the total firm's fees for a period of 2 consecutive years, then it needs to be disclosed to the institute. But there are certain exemptions available in this case. If the client is a government entity or a public sector undertaking or a nationalized bank, then such disclosure is not required. And this is the current provision is as per the Code of Ethics 12th edition. The proposed 13th edition of Code of Ethics also have mentioned certain proposed revision in the total fees disclosure, that is for non-public interest entities, if the audit fees exceeds 40% of the total firm's fees for a period of 5 consecutive years, then the same need to be disclosed to the institute. There is also a change in the definition of public interest entity. So now the public interest entities will also include entities whose main function is to accept deposits from the public. Another clarification which has been issued is with regard to communication with previous auditor. This is basically considered to be a informal bro code in the CA profession. So as per CA Act Clause 8, Part 1 of first schedule, a member must communicate with the previous auditor before acceptance of audit. So there is legal distinction between what is to be done and what is not required to be done. Basically, first we can provide written consent of eligibility to the client before any communication is made with the previous auditor. This is actually allowed, but in case the auditor is not going to accept the audit engagement, then he needs to communicate with the previous auditor first and then accept the audit engagement. Just like banks have KYC norms for their customers, that is know your customer norms. Audit firms are also required to have a know your client norms, and which is relevant for client acceptance. So the KYC norms are mandatory with effect from 1st January 2017 for all functions. So basically, we need to obtain data regarding the client, who can also be an individual proprietor, corporate entity, or a non-corporate entity. Details such as name of the company, address of the entity, PAN, Aadhaar, proprietors or the partners and the directors' details, and the type of audit engagement, and the copy of last annual financial statement. So this was basically introduced to reduce the threat of acceptance of a client who might be involved in a suspicious or fraudulent activities. So if before accepting any client engagement, we can initially do the KYC. We should do the know your client norms so that we don't end up accepting any client which is involved in any suspicious activity. And this should also form part of your audit documentation. Now we'll be seeing about recent decisions made by the board, what is permitted and what is not permitted. So basically, the first thing which is permitted is due diligence services. Due diligence services are basically conducted by required by the client when they are about to acquire or take over any other organization. So the auditor will be not auditing. The auditor will actually examine the financial statements and records to ensure that they are consistent with what has been mentioned, so as to make the appropriate decision for the client. The next one is BRSR assurance provider. Statutory auditor may act as the assurance provider of BRSR 4 for the same audit client. Let's break this into word by word. What is BRSR? BRSR is basically business responsibility and sustainability reporting. So this reporting requirement is mandated by SEBI for top 1,000 listed entities. And in this report, basically the environmental, social and governance, that is ESG policies, are disclosed by the
ESG policies made by the client are being disclosed in the report. And BRSR 4 is actually a subset of BRSR report. So in BRSR 4, there are 9 principles upon which there should be a verification of the claims made by the entity. Let's understand assurance provider too. Assurance provider is an independent person who needs to verify that the information presented in the BRSR 4 is actually true and prepared properly. So the statutory auditor can act as the assurance provider, and he can also provide advisory services regarding the BRSR report, but he cannot prepare the BRSR report, which is mentioned in the first point of the non-permitted one.
Why is it so?
Because that
Is there a difference between these two? The BRSR assurance providing and BRSR study of the audit. Why one is falling in non-permission and one is falling in, okay, this is permitted. Guys, are you here with me? Or not? Atma, here you are with me. So, audit, what is an audit? Providing reasonable assurance over the financials. That they are true and fair. You presenting a true and fair view of the financial statements. और उसके ऊपर भी क्या reasonable assurance, not absolute assurance. And यहाँ पर हम दोनों में एक जगह स्टडी कर रहे हैं और एक जगह क्या कर रहे हैं? Assurance service provide कर रहे हैं. The study, the BRSI study, if she would have not debriefed you about the same, उसके वर्ड से क्या पता चल रहा है? You would be diving deep into that part. आप उसकी स्टडी करोगे. Business responsibility and sustainability, business responsibility and sustainability reporting, right? So sustainability reporting is a part which is fresh part, like 4-5 साल हुए sustainability वाले topic को आए. And business responsibility is more aligned towards what is the top management decisions, strategic planning जो करते हैं लोग, आगे के forecasting करते हैं, revenue growth rate से related. So when you do the study with them, it means you are involved with the top management or TCWG. When you are providing an assurance over the BRSR code, it means they have done already the study. आप सिर्फ उन्हें क्या कर रहे हो? एक assurance provide करा रहे हो कि ये चीज सही है या नहीं है. Whether it is complying as per the legal and regulatory requirements or whatever framework has been decided. So that's why there is a difference between the two. Or anything you want to add? Also, due diligence services are also present here, and we have seen that in the professional misconduct as well. So, just break down the due diligence meaning to me. What is due diligence? Because I haven't asked that in earlier part. What do you understand by due diligence? A CA is providing a due diligence service to his client, whether a corporate, mostly like 99% is corporate only. In case it is an individual, it is mostly an NRI case, जो कि बहुत or a HNI part. But 100% cases, mostly cases it is corporate purpose. So due diligence report, इसके अंदर क्या होता है? What is the part that CA plays in due diligence? You know, CA plays a part in audit, right? What is a part that CA plays in due diligence? I think you have been given quite a background of everything. Just have to jot down the words, connect them. Next one, I don't want to call out names here.
Like due diligence जैसे normally आपने replacers लेके सकते हैं minority उसमें बोला इतने employees नहीं है इतने इतना profit नहीं है इतना cash नहीं है तो due diligence basically यही होगा जो आपने present कर रखे हैं financial statements तो exactly correct है भी या नहीं मतलब बहुत ज्यादा नहीं पर एक certain level पे एकदम exactly wrong पे नहीं जा रहा उन्होंने जितना profits दिखा रखा है लेकिन उन्होंने अगर बैंक लोन्स वगैरह शो कर रखे हैं तो नॉर्मल बैंक से कंफर्मेशन वगैरह ले लेना नॉर्मल क्रेडिटर्स की लिस्ट वगैरह डेटर्स की आउटस्टैंडिंग अमाउंट्स वगैरह चेक करना मतलब बेसिक की जो इन्फॉर्मेशन प्रोवाइडेड है तो एग्जैक्टली करेक्ट हो रही है
In some or the other way, due diligence falls in line with audit also. आप ऑडिट कर रहे हो और ड्यू डिलिजेंस के अंदर क्या कर रहे हो आप? It in that you go in case of new company or in case of a company which is already been established, you see the trends of the trend analysis. You see whether there is any disruption in the trend, whether it is related to a financial ratio, whether it is related to any revenue part or any FSLI, that is the financial statement line item. Whether any line item is showing a high variance, which is a concerning part, a pain point part, which can reflect a fraudulent activity being present or which can reflect that there is a misrepresentation of data being done here. And due diligence is majorly done for the companies who go for funding or IPO. So एक तरीके से क्या होता है उनका बैकग्राउंड चेक इज मोर ऑफ लाइक अ ड्यू डिलिजेंस रिपोर्ट. तो ऑडिट का एक एक्सटेंडेड पार्ट बट इन अ कॉमन एक ऐसे स्पेसिफिक और प्रिसाइज मैनर.
Next one is that it is permissible for a member in practice to accept the assignment of mystery audit. So mystery audit is basically where auditor is employed by the client to visit his showrooms or some places where he evaluates the customer quality and experience. A member in practice is also permitted to set up practice in GIFT City. Now let's look into what is not permitted. First one we have already seen. Second would be statutory auditor of an entity cannot engage in compilation engagement of the same entity. Example would be preparation of financial statements. WhatsApp and messaging apps for solicitation cannot be used to send messages making people aware of his practice to other services provided therein. The next one would be a firm being a stat auditor of a bank cannot simultaneously accept the account and stock monitoring assignment of a customer of the same bank. Only one assignment at a time can be allowed to be checked. And a member in practice cannot be appointed simultaneously as an internal auditor and procurement officer in the same organization.
जिनको तो इन्होंने चक्कर करी है
The next one would be director question on company portal. So a member in practice may mention his position as a promoter or director on a company portal, but however he cannot mention the firm name or the professional assignments. This would create a violation in clause 6 and 7 of part 1 of first schedule of CA Act 1949. CA in practice being a director of a company cannot sign the ROC forms of the company because that would create a direct conflict of roles. There is no restriction on the internal auditor for purchasing the shares of the company, and the chartered accountant cannot exercise lien over the client documents or records for non-payment of fees. The next one would be a CA in practice can hold a credit card of a bank of which he is also the auditor, provided that the outstanding balance does not exceed rupees 1 lakh beyond the prescribed limit, because 1 lakh is the indebtedness limit. firm is not permitted to publish its vision or mission statement on its letterhead or visiting card or any other stationery. It can be printed on the firm's profile, and it can also be provided with response to a specific request. So that's the case scenario for online participants. CAA and CAB started a partnership firm a few years ago under the firm name AB and Associates. They are looking for various revenue streams and also build their brand. They took the following steps. CAA created a WhatsApp broadcast list of 400 contacts for practice promotion containing former clients, colleagues, and business associates, and sent a message saying AB and Associates is now offering GST advisory, tax planning, and audit services. Do reach out for a free consultation. He felt that this was just a word of mouth publicity in a digital form. CAA also prepared a vision statement on the letterhead and visiting card. He redesigned the firm's letterhead and visiting card to include the tagline AB and Associates, excellence through integrity, our mission, delivering value, and building trust. He believed that this added a professional touch and differentiated the firm. AB and Associates is a statutory auditor of Realfin Private Limited. The CFO requested them to prepare the company's BRSR study to save their cost. CAB agreed, reasoning that his audit knowledge made him the best person for the job. Realfin Private Limited did not pay audit fees for 2 years, amounting to 3.5 lakhs. And when a new auditor was appointed, CAB refused to hand over the books of accounts, original documents, and working papers until full payment was made. He cited that he has the right to lean on as justification. So, what actions by CAA and CAB raise a serious concern?
Team UB. Team UB. Team Oswal. कहाँ सो गए इसको once
Right.
once and Rahil ओसवाल वाले को कोई नहीं है
Offline participants.
Guys, you went through the case study.
What do you guys think of it?
Right. Actions by CA regarding the vision and mission statement.
Okay.
Which is also not correct.
Okay.
Actions BRSR.
Yeah,
BRSR study.
Okay.
Is not correct.
Okay.
Monday को शाम को.
Consultation.
Okay, ठीक है.
That's all. Please consultation.
What's happening?
What?
But see,
आपके बात बताएं. Not allowed.
okay. So all these actions are not allowed. So lastly, so by thought we have seen about the Code of Ethics 12th edition. The following are the proposed changes which are to be made in the 30th edition of Code of Ethics. Firstly, traditions are to be inculcated in our Code of Ethics. Dharmo Rakshati Rakshitah, that is, Dharma protects those who protect it. Satyamev Jayate, and these principles are to be included in the new Code of Ethics. The Code of Ethics is also to be aligned with the IESBA Code of Ethics 2024 edition, and a new chapter of ethical standards on sustainability assurance also to be added. The terminology has been updated from professional accountant to chartered accountant. The scope of management consultancy services has been expanded to include forensic accounting, research analyst, AI, social impact assessment. Advertisement guidelines, website guidelines, and new CLO guidelines are also to be included. And the indebted limits from the indebted limit is to be increased from 1 lakh to 5 lakh, and 2 new chapters such as minimum professional fees, non-payment of undisputed audit fees are to be included, and a separate publication is to be made for a case law reference, which is now in the volume 3. Now we'll be seeing about no clause. No clause stands for non-compliance with laws and regulations. So let's understand the basic definition of no clause. So no clause refers to acts of omission or commission, intentional or unintentional, which are contrary to the prevailing laws and regulations, which are committed by the client or the professional accountants employing organization, TCWG, management or other individuals working for the above people. No clause basically covers 2 broad categories of law, that is law that have a direct effect on the determination of material amounts and disclosure in the financial statement. For example, Income Tax Act, GST Act, and laws that do not directly affect the financial statement, but they are fundamental to business operations, continuity or avoidance of material penalties. For example, Environmental Protection Act and so what no clause does not cover is personal misconduct, which is made by the people mentioned on the left side, which is not related to the business, non-compliance by outside parties, and matters which are clearly inconsequential. So here are a few laws and regulations covered under no clause. Fraud, bribery, and corruption, that is payment made to government officials for securing contract. Money laundering, which would include terrorist financing and proceeds of crime. Securities, market and trading, manipulation of markets and fraudulent financial reporting. Banking and financial services, regulatory violations in the banking sector. Data protection, breaches of personal data privacy laws, and tax and pension liabilities such as non-payment or evasion of tax or pension obligation. Environmental protection, breaches endangering health or public safety of employees and public safety and health, selling products which are harmful to the public or public safety or health. So that's a case study for the offline participants. A chartered accountant was engaged to conduct a tax audit under section 4480 of the Income Tax Act 1961 and submit an audit report in form PCD. During the course of the audit, the CA came across heavy cash transactions entered into by the assessee. Despite being aware of these transactions, the CA did not bring them to the attention and make necessary disclosure in the audit report. So what do you guys think on this? Is this a non-compliance? On whose fault? Offline participants?
PCD वाला भी करता है
So the chartered accountant was held guilty of professional misconduct because he did not report the cash transaction made by the entity. So heavy undisclosed cash transaction can indicate tax evasion, a direct breach of the Income Tax Act, and the CA's failure to report in Form 3CD was not merely a procedural lapse, it also amounted to shielding potential non-compliance from tax authorities, directly harming the public interest. What the CA should have done is he should have identified and scrutinized the heavy cash transactions, evaluated whether these transactions were in compliance or not, and disclose these transactions in the appropriate report and exercise due care and diligence. So the basic objective of NOCLAR is that we should not turn a blind eye towards the non-compliance. We should not, if we come across any non-compliance, our solution should not be withdrawal from the audit engagement or resignation from the organization. Instead, we should take necessary steps to report the non-compliance to the appropriate authorities and take adequate steps, which must be in the interest of public at large. We need to comply with the fundamental principles of integrity and professional behavior. We need to alert the appropriate authorities, and we also should deter the wrongdoings so that it is not occurring further. Let's understand the applicability of NOCLAR in India. It is basically divided into two parts. Section 260, which is applicable for accountants in service. So it is applicable for senior professional accountants such as directors, officers, CEO, CFO, and senior employees who have significant influence. And these people must be employed in listed entities. The second section, section 360, speaks about mentions about accountants in public practice. So professional accountants performing audit engagements of listed entities, which is listed on a recognized stock exchange, and it has a net worth of rupees 250 crore or more. Upon these people, NOCLAR is applicable. However, as per the proposed revision in the Code of Ethics 13th edition, there is a change which is proposed to be mentioned. That is, the limit of net worth of 250 crore or more is to be done away with, and thereby NOCLAR provision will be applicable to the listed entities and their material subsidiaries. And the concept of imminent breach, which is discussed in later slide, is proposed to be included, which requires immediate reporting to the appropriate authorities. So let's understand the role of professional accountants in service and professional accountants in public practice. Firstly, the senior professionals, since they, due to their influence and position, they have a greater expectation to be, act more in the public interest. So for other professionals, they need to understand the matter and inform the appropriate seniors and to enable them to take appropriate action. In case of professional accountants in public service, their primary duty is to discuss with the management and TCWG, and if required, they may also inform the group engagement partner if the issue persists, affects a larger component of a larger group. Responding to NOCLAR, let's understand this by a step-by-step process. this process will be discussed in detail in the next slide. So this is just an overview. First, we need to understand the non-compliance. We can address the matter to the appropriate authorities. It could be superiors, management, or TCWG. We can also seek advice internally or externally. We need to assess the response received from the management or TCWG and determine whether we need to take further course of action to act in the public interest. We can also disclose it to the appropriate authorities, and in case of imminent breach, we can disclose it immediately to prevent substantial harm, and we need to document everything. So for section 260, senior professional accountants in employment, firstly, we need to obtain an understanding of the nature and circumstance of the non-compliance, understand the applicable laws. We are not required to have an in-depth knowledge of the laws and regulations. Just an overview would be sufficient, and understanding the consequences. We can also initiate a internal investigation in this case. We need to address the matter to the immediate superior if that person is not involved. If the person is involved, then we can communicate it to the TCWG. We need to take steps to mitigate or reduce recurrence of the risk, and if possible, we need to disclose it to the external auditor. The next step is to assess and further assess the responses received from the TCWG or the management, and if possible, we can determine the further course of action by seeking advice internally from the legal counsel or externally by consulting the ICAI confidentially. And we need to document each and every step we have followed, that is the non-compliance identified, discussion with the management of TCWG, and what responses were made by the management of TCWG, and what further course of action we had taken by applying our professional judgment, and how public interest was fulfilled in this case. So for auditors in public practice, a few steps are a bit similar. Understanding the non-compliance, understanding the facts and circumstances, discussing with the management initially, and if the auditor feels that the management could be involved in the non-compliance, then can discuss it with the TCWG directly. They can also advise the management to rectify or disclose the further non-compliance, and in case of group audit, they need to communicate the non-compliance to the group engagement partner. So after this, they need to assess the responses received from the management or TCWG, and if they are withdrawing from the engagement, then they need to disclose these non-compliances which they have identified during the course of their audit to the succeeding auditor too. So to determine whether to disclose to an appropriate authority, the following examples are laid down in the Code of Ethics. So if the entity is involved in bribery or bribing the local or foreign government officials to secure tenders, or any matter that threatens the organization's license to operate, or if there is any risk to the financial markets, and the products which are likely to be sold by the entity causes public health and safety, and if the client is promoting tax evasion schemes to the client. So these are a few examples which have been mentioned in the Code of Ethics, where it is necessary that the disclosure is to be made to the appropriate authority. The appropriate authority could be ICAI if there is a professional misconduct by TA, SEBI if there is a fraudulent financial reporting, environmental agency for breach of environmental laws, and other regulators depending upon the nature of violation. So the condition of disclosure is that the auditor should not be precluded from disclosing to the laws or regulations. Adequate whistleblower policy has been implemented in the organization, and there is no threat to physical safety, and the auditor must act in good faith and with caution. And mainly, the auditor should also communicate with the client before making any disclosures to the appropriate authority. So here's a case study for the participant. CASR Khanna served as a statutory auditor of Free Industrial Rubber Works Private Limited, and in that capacity acquired confidential information about the company's affairs. However, the company removed CA Khanna from his position as an auditor. Disputes over non-payment of professional fees were also outstanding between the party. CA Khanna wrote a letter to the ROC disclosing confidential information acquired during his professional engagement without the client's consent and without any legal obligation to do so. A complaint was filed against the CA, and the CA defended his action by claiming that it was done in public interest and to expose the circumstances of the wrongful removal. He also argued that disclosure to the ROC was a bona fide act in the public interest intended to bring to the light the circumstances under which he was wrongfully removed from his auditorship. He also contended that the letter was written to protect his own professional interest. So what do you guys think? Whether the act of
whether the act of CA is right or wrong.
not valid. He is not required to report.
Was not required to leave the contract. Just on the basis that is
Okay. Any other answers? Or there is no legal requirement. Okay. Any other answer?
Is it looking like he what he is giving in defense is that the disclosure was a bona fide act in public interest. Was it a bona fide act then, or was it a vengeful act then? If it was bona fide, then he would have firstly discussed it with the management, gone from the right direction, not after being removed from his position as an auditor. That in itself took a U-turn.
From the facts on the record, it was evident that the respondent, the CA, was aggrieved by the action of the company in removing from the auditorship, and there were disputes regarding non-payment of his fees. And in these circumstances, the letter was written more out of vengeance, that is out of revenge, rather than public interest. If public interest was the paramount consideration, then the respondent would have made a report disclosing all the information to the shareholders or creditors. The request was issued only not as an act of, not as a bona fide action on the part of the respondent, and the CA was held guilty of gross professional misconduct.
gross.
उसके अंदर ही होंगे प्रोफेशनल मिसकंडक्ट इतना ग्रॉस नेग्लिजेंस और प्रोफेशनल मिसकंडक्ट को
Gross होता है, gross नहीं होता.
Next, let's discuss about imminent breach. So, imminent breach means where a chartered accountant or in profession or in service comes across a substantial threat, substantial harm which is likely to be incurred to the creditors and the public at large. So, in case it is assumed that if it is understood that it is an imminent breach, then he can directly, without discussing it with the management, exercise his professional judgment and directly report it to the appropriate authorities. And now let's discuss about Confidentiality Act. The members in practice and members in service need not disclose any client information without consent except as required by law. So if there is any requirement by the law, only then they need to disclose the client information, and they cannot disclose without discussing with the auditee. There are certain few key clarifications regarding MOOC law. MOOC law is applicable only to stat audit and not tax audit, and it is not the duty of the auditor to identify no clause. It is only to respond. And if there is any change in the auditor, then the preceding auditor must provide all the nuclear facts and circumstances to the succeeding auditor. And if there is a disagreement between the management and the auditor regarding the non-compliance, then if the management disagrees that it is not a non-compliance, then he needs to apply his own professional judgment to understand if he's satisfied with the response of the management. If he's not satisfied, then he can further pursue the action which is mentioned in the framework. So here's a quick comparison with NOCLAR and SA-250. SA-250 states about consideration of laws and regulations in audit of financial statements. So first, the comparison factor would be applicability. SA-250 is applicable only to audit of financial statements, whereas NOCLAR framework is applicable to all professional accountants, that is those who are in service and in public practice. The scope of harm, SA-250 focuses on law that have direct effect on financial statement, whereas in NOCLAR framework, the focus is on law is both on direct effect on financial statements and indirect effect on the financial statements, and it includes non-compliance causing substantial harm, that is imminent breach. Stakeholders, SA-250 does not explicitly provide any stakeholders, but the NOCLAR framework provides that the decision need to be taken to protect the general public at large, investors, creditors, and employees. The provision of imminent breach is not mentioned in SA-250, whereas as per NOCLAR framework, if there is any imminent breach, then it needs to be reported directly without discussing with the management or TCWD. So the final step would be documentation. As professionals, we are required to document the non-compliance identified. What are the course of action you have taken, that is consulting internally or externally. We are also required to discuss it with the management. So those discussions and their responses are also required to be documented. And after the responses are received, we need to identify by applying a professional judgment what course of action we have taken, that is disclosing to the appropriate authority or not, and also taking judgment decisions based on so that the public interest is saved. So here's a case scenario. During the stat audit of Horizon Pharma Private Limited, CA Shalini Mehra noticed several unusual entries while reviewing the company's trade payables and foreign remittances. She observed the following. Finding number 1, suspected regulatory violation, payments aggregating rupees 1.8 crores were made to 3 overseas vendors described as raw material suppliers. However, Shalini found no corresponding input records, no bill of entry, and no FSSAI drugs import license for the material supposed to be received. This raised a strong suspicion of violation of Drugs and Cosmetics Act 1940, importing pharmaceutical raw materials without requisite licenses. Finding number 2, suspected FEMA violation, 2 foreign remittances of USD 85,000 and 1.2 lakh were routed through a small private bank with no prior RBI approval and no supporting form 15PA or 15PB. The nature of payment was vaguely referred as consultancy. This raised a suspicion of possible FEMA violations, unauthorized remittance without prescribed documentation. So the CA raised both these matters to CFO and the managing director, and the managing director's response was that the overseas payment relate to proprietary formulations purchased under confidential arrangement, and we cannot disclose the details due to trade secrets. And the FEMA remittances were done with our legal team's advice, and there is no violation. You are just overreading the routine documents, and we strongly disagree that there is any non-compliance here. So management refused to provide any supporting documents and requested Shalini to proceed with the audit report without any qualification or adverse remarks. So what do you think, that if the management is disagreeing with CA Shalini, can Shalini proceed further by pursuing the matter, or she should drop the matter? So, under the nuclear framework, management disagreement is not a sufficient ground for PA Shalini to automatically stop pursuing the matter. She must be satisfied with the management explanations, adequately dispelling her suspicion. In this case, the CFO's explanation is vague, unsupported by documents, and does not address any specific regulatory concern. Her suspicion, therefore, remains, and she is obligated to consider the further course of action. So that's it from our side. Thank you.
Before starting